everyone. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming to our Women's Day celebration 2022. Salt River Heritage Society warmly welcomes you to our Women's Day celebration and the unveiling of our newest mural of Shireen Abu Akleh. The theme for 2022 Women's Month is Generation Equality, Realizing Women's Rights for an Equal Future. This is a global campaign. The artist goes by the name of Hocha. He was born in Salt River in the 1980s when he was a part of the first South African hip-hop band called Prophets of the City. When he left the band, he followed his passion of mural painting. He has been doing graffiti art for more than 35 years. He's also known as the GOAT, greatest of all-time graffiti artist. For Heritage Day in 2021, he painted a mural honoring Judge Siraj Desai and his comrades. The mural is in Pope Street. If you walk up Fenton Road and into Pope Street left, you'll find the mural there. Please, after this event, do take a walk and have a look at that. So why are we honoring Shireen Abu Akleh? She was a Palestinian-American journalist who worked as a reporter for the Arabic language channel Al Jazeera for 25 years. She was a prominent name across the Middle East for her decades of reporting in the Israeli-occupied Palestinian territories. She reported on major events in Palestinian history. As a leading journalist in the Arab world, she inspired many other Palestinians, particularly women, to pursue careers in journalism. Her death drew widespread outrage when she was killed by the Israeli apartheid regime. Her face on this wall not only honors her, but all those murdered by the cowardly Israeli occupation forces. The attacks that kill innocent civilians, especially children, has no justification. Here in South Africa, as this is Women's Month, we celebrate and commemorate women and the girl child. We celebrate women's resilience in the face of patriarchal oppression and related gender-based violence and femicide, GBVF. We commemorate women and children who have died and who have suffered abuse due to patriarchal practices that lead to GBVF. We are unapologetic when we ask for a call to end all patriarchy and equality of men and women in our society. Research reflects GBVF happens in the home, between four walls. Government and civil society needs to be more vocal against patriarchy and its oppressive practices. Violence against women and children has long reached pandemic proportions. 1 in 5 women have experienced physical violence by a partner. We are unapologetic as women. We will not be silenced. We are strong and resilient, and we will continue fighting alongside men who support us in the continued struggle for equality in our society. So now we would like to ask you for a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. So now I would like to tell you that we have a wonderful program of phenomenal women who are going to speak to you today. I'm going to name all 4 women and give you a little bit of background about them, and then I'll ask them to come up one by one. So the first speaker will be Fatima Swartz, and she will talk about challenges facing women in South Africa. She is the Director of Programs at the Institute of Healing of Memories. Over the last couple of decades, she has worked in various contexts with issues of conflict transformation, human rights, identity, building of community solidarity and healing. She is a cat whisperer and a life traveler. The next person coming up will be Tina Matsimella. She is going to speak on women and mental health. Tina Matsimella is a content creator, entrepreneur, writer and actress from Cape Town. Her platform and business, The Joy Seat, also her cathartic output, is her main passion and something that was inspired by a need in herself and her community. Through her YouTube channel, she shares her series, Generational Chats, which she hosts with her mother, speaking about a topic from a 2-generational perspective and showing how generations can heal trauma through loving conversation, giving hope to those by showing how patience, comedy and compassion can break unhealthy cycles built by previous generations and their ignorance. Our next speaker after that will be Atiyyah Khan. She is an art activist. Atiyyah is a journalist, researcher, selector, crate digger, event organizer, and archivist from Johannesburg. She's now based in Cape Town. She currently freelances as an arts journalist, documenting visual arts, theatre, music, film, and other forms of culture in South Africa. Atiyyah is also the co-founder of a music collective called Future Nostalgia, which hosts listening sessions around Cape Town, celebrating the culture of records. Our next speaker will be Sama Yoyo. She will perform a song for us, and she's a versatile artist with experience as an actress, singer, songwriter, pianist, and guitarist. Sama was born in the Eastern Cape, and she was part of the National Arts Festival. Yoyo first came to the attention of the national audiences when she was named one of the 34 finalists in the Idols SA 2012 season. And so these are our phenomenal women that will address you today. So thank you very much. Oh, Hocha, I've just seen him. He's just arrived. Please, will you come here? This is Hocha. This is our artist. Hi. Would you say something?
Hi, how are you? I'm very happy to be here and see everybody enjoying the mural. And this is a great dedication for Women's Day. I can just say thank you to everybody from Salt River Heritage Society for allowing me to represent you guys like this. I'm just glad that everything is cool and everybody's here for this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'd first like to ask... So firstly, I'd like to ask Fatima Swartz to come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia, and thank you to the Salt River Heritage Society for inviting me to come and share some thoughts here. So they asked me to talk about the challenges facing women. And when somebody asks me something like that, I always become a bit, not nervous, but women knows what their challenges is. Now they're asking me to come and tell them what is their challenges, you know. But I think Nadia has adequately spoken about some of the challenges that face women. And there's lots of challenges that face women. But we're meeting on a very particular day, the 9th of August. And we are opening and unveiling a mural of someone who stood for something very special. And I think that is about justice. And it links to the 9th of August, and the challenge that faces us, I think as women, is our love for justice. I think that's going to be the theme of what I'm going to talk about. Is our biggest challenge is to give practical expression of our love for justice and our love for people. And for me is that when we talk about gender-based violence, poverty, the inhumanity, how people are not treated with dignity, it talks to the lack of love and treating people with dignity and respect. And people like Shireen, the women that led the march in 1956 were all women and people that was passionate. They loved people, all people, and they loved justice. And they were prepared to do something about that. I want to mention just, I don't have as a nicely organized presentation as Nadia has, but I want to just mention 3 names of women which I thought just off the cuff came to my mind. Was the one is Ruth First, who was a South African activist who was assassinated, and some of you might know about her. The other one is Jeanette Schoon, who with her daughter was assassinated in Angola. Ruth was killed in Mozambique. And then of course there's Dulcie September. Dulcie lived just down the road here in Agherdine. And she was assassinated in Paris, the way Shireen was assassinated. And for me the challenge that faces women is that when we become politically and conscious and involved, then we become targets. Our lives become cheap. And days before Shireen was assassinated in Palestine, Nokutula Mabasu on the 5th of May was assassinated in Durban. She's one of those people that is working there with people who are homeless and so on. And we didn't hear much about her. In fact, we don't hear, the name Nokutula is not even on our lips, right? It's just somebody else, because these are people who are fighting for justice amongst people, and that's a challenge, right? So I think one of the challenges that are facing us as women is developing our love and our compassion for justice, and justice for all people, right? If you look at the pictures of 1996, you would see this diverse group of women that was there. Young, old, were they saris, were they tukis, were they traditional garb, and so on. It showed the diversity of people. It showed that people were respected for who they are, for what they are, for their heritage, for their culture, for their religion, and so on. It was all embracing. And I think that is one of the things that we can learn from that day. And I think it's challenging us today when we are faced with all the things that we are faced with, and we want to retreat, and we start talking about awesome mense, you know, our people. And our people becomes people who look like us, people who have our same religion, who lives in our same community, and all of that. So that is a big challenge, I think, for women, because lots of the time it's women that would tell their children, don't play with them. that regulates who our children are friends with, right? So we are challenged by to be inclusive as much as we are facing all kinds of challenges. I hope you don't mind that I've shifted a bit the challenge to where I'm going. But I think more than that also we are challenged to be explicitly and unapologetically fighting for justice, right? And that we name it as such. And for doing that, you know, the one word that comes up is when we're fighting for justice for women is we talk about equality. And then for me it's always about equality with whom, equality with what. Do we want to be equally oppressed as men? Do we want to be equally exploited as men? What is this measure of equality that we want? You know, what is it that we are actually hoping for when we talk about equality? And I think we don't have enough conversation with each other in terms of what we're hoping for. So our dream is a bit vague, you know. What we are working towards is a bit vague because we don't give expression to what it is. And maybe because the answers to those questions is too uncomfortable, right? Because if you challenge equality to whom, equality to what, then we have to look at, oh, but maybe the system we're living in isn't so good, and of course, patriarchy is easy. But there's other issues around patriarchy, the economic system, our belief systems, a whole range of things. So I think women need to have that debate, and we need to take up the challenge to build the vision, not just only for ourselves, but also for all of people, right? For our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, for our communities, for our country, and join in terms of solidarity with the world. When we look at 1956 and the people coming together at one moment, or if you look at what happened after Shireen's assassination, what became very obvious is that for us to bring change or to move towards change that challenges us in this time is the fact that you couldn't organize 20,000 people without talking to them. It's a simple thing. Right now we talk via WhatsApp. We've got so many ways in which we can communicate with one another. But for the leaders of the time to talk truth to power, they first had to talk to one another. And that's what we don't do. Everybody is like rushing to talk truth to power, but we're not organizing amongst ourselves and talking to one another. And so I think a big challenge for us is to be able to develop a language, a way of engaging with love and respect with people from all walks of life so that we know where they are and so that we can share with them what our dreams are, what our visions are. I mean, if we were to say now in 9 months, I'm saying 9 months because, like, you know, from conception to birth, we're going to have 20,000 people march to Cape Town, you know? How many people here would confidently say we can do that? There's a few. But everybody's hand didn't just go up, yes, we can do that, you know? Because it's going to be very, very hard work. And it's going to be sacrifice. And I remember, and I'm sure there's some people here, that during the 1980s there was a campaign called the Million Signature Campaign. One of the only times when I thought I'm leaving this drama now is that we went to Elsie's River. We were deployed to Elsie's River to go and collect signatures. And signature campaign was door-to-door work, which I both loved and hated. Because people can be very rude to you. They chase you away from your door. But in the process of knocking on people's doors, you learn so much about the reality of what people are going through. And you meet so many interesting people. And so for us a challenge for us is how do we communicate with each other so that we can effectively challenge the powers that might be. I think that is a big challenge for us as women and as communities as a whole. Because lots of the time, it is about building the solidarity amongst us and strengthening us and giving us confidence as women to do this work that will take ourselves forward. And we are so in competition with one another and also with media, not dressed right, lipstick color is off and so forth and so on, that we just like really on, like my niece was saying as I left the house, she said, really Auntie Fatima, you're going to go like that? Where's the fashion, what is it? The fashion, the judges, I don't know what it is. The fashion police won't allow you to go. I said, no, there's going to be a lot of, you don't understand. If you come with me, you'll see nobody's going to care, you know? But people would care, and they would make all kinds of statements and so on. So, in conclusion, I would want to say that lots of the challenges that we face as women is systematic challenges of patriarchy, giving rise to gender-based violence and so on, poverty, gangsterism, all of these things. And when I talk to people, they talk not about my concerns, they talk about, I worry. And I'm not sure somebody's going to talk now after me, I think about the mental health. Women are worried. They're worried if their husbands are going to come home. They're worried if their children are safe. They're worried if they're going to put bread on the table. And that's different to having a concern. Because they're worried. Do you guys hear that a lot of the time? When you ask people, how's it? Nee, ek is so worry. And within our cultural context, it's very heavy. Because it preys on your mind. It keeps you awake at night. And so we are sitting with more than half of our population, adult women population, being very worried about many things. And that has an impact on our joy in life. So can you worry any? Oh, I song now. Don't worry, be happy. I was going to ask Lutfi, can we play that song, Don't Worry, Be Happy? But then I thought, oh no, but I would be taking it a bit too far. But this whole idea that we can't stop worrying about people that we love. We can't. And that has an impact on our mental health, being worried all the time. So for me I want to celebrate the life of Shireen. I want to celebrate the lives of all the South African heroines that was killed, assassinated during the time of apartheid, and that are now being assassinated and persecuted and treated badly by our South African system as they pursue their love for justice. At the same time, I want to honor really the people who led this march in 1956. Helen Joseph, Helen Goy, Albert Sisulu, Sophie de Bruyn, Ruth Mompai, and others, a whole lot of people. I think the important thing to remember always is that it is the 20,000 people that came, women that came, that made it a powerful event. It's always the people who come, the people who participate, the people we've spoken to. And so I would say our biggest challenge as women is to cultivate our love for justice, to cultivate our love to work for justice, and to cultivate our love for the people that we are very close to. I want to end off with a poem by Rupi Kaur. I don't know if I'm spelling the name right, but it's a very simple poem. You don't have to worry, and it's not in competition with you at all, Michael Wieder. So.
Thank you.
So what she says is, most importantly, love. Like it is the only thing you know how. At the end of the day, all of this means nothing. The page, where you're sitting, your degree, your job, the money, nothing even matters except love and human connection. Who you loved and how deep you loved them. How you touched the people around you and how much you gave them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fatima, for that. Now we would like to welcome Tina Matsimella, please. Thank you, Tina.
So I don't want my pages to blow away. So I'm going to keep both hands on them at times. Perfect. Let's both mine. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board of the Salt River Heritage Society. I thank you for the honor of being asked to speak today and being part of an event on this Women's Day. An event to celebrate the life and contributions of Shireen Abu Akleh and all those she did her best to give voice to. I wanted to take a moment to also celebrate the artist. I know Khocha has disappeared already, but I wanted to mention his name. That has created such a beautiful memorial for this event and to remind us fickle humans of the warrior spirit of such a woman as Miss Akleh, days, months, and years after we may forget about her. Thank you for your contribution of art. As mentioned by my kind and eloquent host, my name is Tina Matsimella and I'm a mental health activist. I often think of myself as a mental health enthusiast because I will enthusiastically speak to you about all things related to mental health, which is everything, for extended periods of time if you have the time. I'm not afraid to admit that I did not know much about Miss Akleh before today. But I had heard about her violent death 3 months ago, scrolling through Instagram. It made me sad to hear about yet another death, a reflex I hope never dampens in the midst of the loss we have all experienced during these past 2 years of the pandemic. I did gather from those well-edited news stories that she was a well-respected person and a story shone a light that was very needed. As I did my own brief research, I learned that she was one of the first and earliest Arab female journalists starting her career in 1997. Over 25 years of contributions to the media, she mainly assigned stories to herself and chose to highlight many stories which would have been overlooked. Described by a close friend and well-respected fellow journalist Issam Ikirmawi from BBC Arab as well revered, having a great deal of integrity, and being able to maintain a balanced demeanor and perspective even in high-octane situations, which I'm assuming was all the time. All I think when I hear this description is, what a woman. So I'm honored to be part of an event that celebrates her life. Ms. Akleh also reminds me of many of the women in my life, and those female activists that came before, those who worked during the years, or rather decades of apartheid, the stamina to keep going and focus on the change that they dreamed of for this country. My mother, Jocelyn Matsimella, her maiden name being Agherdine at the time, was an activist, you see, long before she married my father, James Matsimella. They then continued this passion together. I've been told many stories of my mother and all her fellow activists going to rallies, organizing and taking care of their communities during the struggle, and horrors of torture while imprisoned. I understood that they had sacrificed so much, and I was empowered and came slowly to understand the power of community and one's voice. So I suspect activism is in my blood, but it's just a suspicion. This focus on mental health issues and education and starting my platform, The Joy Seat, was not a path I chose randomly or because it was trending. The clarity of this path actually came after what must have been a mental breakdown on my end and lots of tears on the floor one rainy day in June 2019. Everything in my life seemed to be going wrong. My career, my relationship, and I felt lost. So I did the only thing that felt natural at the time and knelt down on the floor of my mother's bedroom in tears and cried out to God to please take over because deciding on my own had led me astray. I recommitted myself to my faith as a Christian and God reminded me of the gifts He had given me And I felt the overwhelming urge to use my journey of overcoming depression as one to empower others and give hope. That's why I decided on a cheerful name like the Joy Seat, with cheerful colors of yellow and light blue to remind me of this work. It felt very lonely at first because there was not many South Africans, women of color, making content about this. So I took that as a sign that I should forge ahead and be an example. Always turning to God for inspiration, and He has never let me down yet. I've experienced sexual assault many times, and during the #Me movement, I realized my definition of sexual assault was far too narrow. So that number doubled when I reviewed my life. However sad that might be to you, it helped me forgive myself and let go of the shame that often follows the victims of sexual assault. Thinking of those young women who were involved in the Krugersdorp incident and were brutally raped, my heart goes out to them. I cannot imagine the pain they are going through. Please do not forget them in your thoughts and your prayers. Being a model for 8 years, this year actually, I know the dangers of the industry. My cautious nature, I think, is often frowned upon in the industry. But there is much exploitation which is swept under the rug. Being in front of a camera is an act of vulnerability which is taken for granted. You often have to give trust before it is earned, and you hope to build your body of work safely, yet your safety is not guaranteed. What you might not know about rape is that it is a tool of war. If one reads about many wars in history, you often hear how soldiers would castrate or slaughter the men and rape the women of the nations they pillaged and attacked. I will repeat that. Rape is a tool of war, used to sully the heritage of a nation, because in those ancient times a woman couldn't abort their pregnancy safely. Herbs and other crude tools were used, but many times led to injuries in internal organs. Safer abortions, and how we know them now, are only recent in the 20th century. I mention this only to highlight how new these techniques are, as well as the rights to them. The horror of an event of sexual assault replays long after it has happened. And the triggers of it range from smells, sounds, and familiar features in people that you may come across in your everyday. The mental turmoil can be long-lasting, particularly if that woman is not supported or helped to devise a care plan after her assault. I struggle with those effects, so please know I speak from a place of experience, not of theory. Mental health intersects with every aspect of life, and as I continue to create content and host interviews with people of color, I often wonder why we are not prepared for this in our homes and in our schools. The only conclusion I come to is that it is by design. Have you ever met someone who is empowered with knowledge and lacking of doubt that they radiate somehow? One who is certain that they can forge their own path even in adversity? I have, and there is no more powerful type of person. A quote comes to mind when I think of this. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. This is an excerpt from Marianne Williamson's poem, an American female author. I doubt our colonists and those architects of apartheid wanted such powerful beings to be roaming the streets of our country. So they made us believe that we were inferior, and they broke down our family structures, broke down our homes, and turned women and men against each other. Allow me to read you the full poem by Marianne Williamson. The poem is entitled, Our Deepest Fear. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. You playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So reflecting on this poem, through the work I continue to do, I realize more and more that mental health is subjective. All of us are unique and our own definitions of happiness and joy. We all deserve to create our own environments which enhance our happiness and productivity. Each of us deserves safe havens in times of solitude and sorrow, each deserving of support and love in unlimited amounts. You may not know where to begin or stuck in the traditions of yesterday, traditions former generations put in place while ignorant of the complexity of humanity. Please know, I understand they were doing their best, but now that we know better, let's do better. Mental stress in our community doesn't always look like raving, mad lunatics, half-dressed, walking down the streets of the city. It sometimes looks like a workaholic worried about unending expenses. It sometimes looks like the recluse who prefers the safety of their home, or the one who overeats to numb their emotions with pleasure. Please redefine what the challenges of mental stress looks like, as we lose our men to increasing statistics of suicide, and our women and children suffer under increasing incidents of violence and death. What I learned through my interviews is that people need and want to be heard. My private talks with friends, especially men, is that they cannot turn to those closest to them, so they cry alone. Little deaths every day, and they feel like zombies under the stress of life. We all need a safe place to turn. An ear that is not attached to a mouth of judgment, but that offers a warm embrace or just a place for our secrets. If we do not change our thinking, we lose our future leaders, our future inventors of things we have not even yet dreamed of, and healers we sorely need. All things begin in the mind. It is the first gifted garden which seems to fill with dreams if tended and blossom with beautiful flowers of possibility, like in children. Yet we forget that each mind needs to be tended and that we all enjoy the flowers of someone's mind. The films, the music you love to move to, and the art you enjoy, the buildings we visit, the chairs you sit in, and your favorite foods cannot live without having begun in someone's mind. We will never know what we will never experience by so much loss of life, and those who are wounded by violence and lack of support, but we all feel the negative effects through crime and fear of movement in our own streets. So let us continue to educate ourselves today, because it is a little easier than former years. Countless videos from every country and community you can think of are accessible online. Creators and voices you can identify with who share similar perspectives. Through my series Activism, I get to meet the rising young activists of the day, many who are well capable young women. The Gen Zs, and I can tell you they are fierce, eloquent, and determined to see change in this country. They will continue the work. I encourage you to slow down and allow yourself to read through their work online and to be kind and supportive. It is not uncommon for them to receive much hate and be misunderstood, as I am sure Ms. Akla was. But be sure of this, we need each and every one of them. The freedoms we enjoy today are because of them, activists, and there is so much more they are fighting for with us in mind. So, as we memorialize Ms. Shireen Abu Akla today, and all those stories she shone a light on as the war continues in Palestine, let us remember that we are all connected. Their pain is ours, and ours is theirs. Until we are all free, none of us are free, in our minds and on the ground. So before I leave the stage, I'd like to read a poem for you that I wrote for today, and in honor of Women's Day. It's called Together. There is a war. Boom, bang, screech, ear-piercing screams and rivers of blood. We cannot see it. We do not see the rivers. Where? They asked. Ah, fellow human, because wars are happening behind closed doors, they are happening in the intimate, luxurious spaces of homes. The streams of blood trickle in the dark of night under the twinkling stars and glisten as a river would, and you walk by it unsuspecting. The screams are muffled, and you might think it is comforting music, as it plays all the time, and you bop to the rhythm as your fellow human passes to the beyond. There is silence. Only the beat, beat, beat of the sharp hearts, only the warm clouds in the cold daylight of this truth, only the heat of sunlight as it shines on the ignorant and the carefree alike. But we love our sisters and brothers. They would come to us with their pain, and we would know their voices of pain, they protested. Oh, but the victim wears a mask of shame that we gave them, which often cracks with tears gushing, but your busy, indulgent days kept you from lending your silk scarf, kept you from hearing the animal cry blended in the rhythm of screams, and kept you far enough to wonder and close enough to be alert. There is morning. The sniff of the indignant, the huffing of the angry crowd, they pull the victim up, embracing in shame. Tell us your pain. Lay it bare before us. Share your wounds so we can understand. Over and over and over again, they demand. Who are you to ask such a performance? Can you not see their throats are choked with tears, their eyes are blinded with love for their captors, their ankles still shackled as you ask them to dance this tune? Free them in a flower-laid path of their choosing. Free them in the river of healing. Free them so the keys are in their hands and not yours. There is a new day. A twittering of new beginnings, a humming and bustling of change. The crowd stands, eyes seeing, hearts understanding. Forgive us. Our ears were deaf, our hearts were occupied with pleasures and jewels. Here we are for you, a steady multitude of hands, they cry. And so, I see the victims weep and wail for their wounds in beautiful fields of love and embrace, in safe havens of solace and homes of their choosing. Together we watch as the healing river fills with our fellows. Together we undeafen our ears and see more. Together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tina. Thank you also for sharing such a few of your personal experiences. Thank you. Now I'd like to ask for Atiyyah Khan to come up, please. Thank you.
Yeah. I think a bit lower maybe. Yeah. Hi everyone. Okay. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for to the Salt River Heritage Society for having me here. Thank you so much to the community of Salt River for coming out, and to the friends who've showed up. My name is Atiyyah Khan. I'm an arts journalist based in Cape Town, but I'm from Joburg originally. And for the last 14 years, I've been covering art and culture in Cape Town. And I suppose it's the role between arts and journalism that has kind of brought me here. So you need to forgive my awkwardness of the speech, because I'm actually a behind the scenes kind of person. And writing is kind of what I do. And when Anwar asked me to do the speech, I really was resisting, because you know,
Tina and Fatima did amazing work just before this. But yeah, they've also covered a lot of what I wanted to say, but what I wanted to say is specifically from a journalistic perspective, we know that Shireen was assassinated and murdered in the line of fire. And even the reports that came out after her death were very shady about how it happened. Even the way her funeral was handled was quite shocking. And even till today, there's been very little justice for her. I don't think her killers have been found, and I don't know if they will be. And also I'd like to highlight the fact that, you know, with the ongoing attacks currently happening in Gaza, why it's important to speak about Palestine, why it's important to make those connections between South Africa, our fight for freedom, and what's happening in Palestine, especially with what's going on now with the bombings in Gaza, right? So this is also a moment for me to acknowledge all women journalists on this Women's Day who are fighting like frontline journalism at the moment, who are basically risking their lives for the rest of us. And also recognizing Western media's failure in the cause for justice a lot of times. As a writer, I always get very frustrated at the language that's used by global media to write about a lot of these things. You know, there's certain languages that are used that constantly take away from the heaviness of the situation. In an interview, Shireen said, "I chose journalism to be close to the people. It may not be easy to change the reality, but at least I can bring their voice to the world." So I think, in my own perspective as a journalist, and also within the framework of apartheid and our voices being silenced for so many years, my role in writing is to bring up those voices that have been silenced, is to talk about the struggles of black and brown people in South Africa and artists, and how that links to history, and also like who isn't being given a platform, and why is that happening, and who controls the media, and who controls the public spaces. So when I became a journalist, I wanted to be a frontline war reporter. I wanted to go to Sudan, I wanted to go to Palestine, and I realized that it's really not romantic in any way, and actually you need to be super brave, you need to be super thick-skinned, you need to be, be able to handle these situations on your own, away from your family many times. And I guess I chose art because that was my calling as somebody who loves music and theater and film. Yeah, and also on this Women's Day, I also want to talk about, I don't need to go in too much depth because I think Tina really nailed it with that speech. But about the attacks that happened in Krugersdorp and the gang rapes that happened to those women, like, I don't see how we can go on every day and not think about that and the ongoing violence that we face. So what is my connection to this mural, to this area, considering I'm from Joburg? What happened here? Why am I being asked to speak? So in 2020, I wrote a piece for a publication called Arts 24 that was about public art and the politics of public art in Cape Town. And one of the things it did was to look at what public and whose land. So when we talk about street art, graffiti, public art, how is it being placed in our cities? What are we looking at? How is it relevant to us as people in those areas? And one of the things I had to do, it was an investigative journalism piece, but I guess I can say on the record now that I must have done about 30 interviews for that piece, and most of the artists wanted to speak off the record because they were so afraid about losing work. Because all those people who control the money and the power are the ones who can literally take the food off their table. So anyways, the story goes that in 2017, there was a festival held in Salt River called the International Public Arts Festival, run by a Belgian-founded organization called Baz Art. And Baz Art brought a series of artists, about 25 artists, to the area to paint murals without paying them. And also, basically convince the area, convince the neighborhood to give them wall space such as this. And not only were the artists exploited in the situation because they were getting work for free, but there was a host of international artists brought here and given space where locals were not given space. And also, they also got a lot of Israeli artists to come, and it was funded by the Israeli embassy, and this information was publicly on their website. So, in doing the story about who's public and what land and why, it was very important to talk about the fact that Salt River was not consulted as a community in this decision. And also that this was continuing to happen. Every year they were doing a festival. Every year they were bringing international artists, and every year less and less local artists. And I was there right from the start. I was actually on the streets painting with a friend of mine. And I think that this article brought to the attention of the Salt River Heritage Society about the politics of Baz art. And over the last 2 years, they have vehemently started to fight against Baz art. They've started to take things into their own hands, join forces, edit existing murals that were painted by, I guess what I want to say is that while we may think Salt River is a very normal, average community in South Africa, it's probably one of the wildest places I have come across. That there's this collective of aunties and uncles and kids and activists and intellectuals that have basically decided to map out the public space and their landscape and decide what they want on the walls. And it's not to say that the editing and the changing a lot of the murals to rhetoric about Palestine it's like I spoke to Anwar and I said, not everybody supports Palestine. You know, like we can't just force it down people's throats. But I think what's important is the community taking control for themselves, by themselves, also trying to appreciate, like you've got people who've got no knowledge about how art works, how spray cans work, how murals work, what should be paid, how they should be paid, but they're trying. And anyways, over the last 2 years, they've sourced their own walls, this being one of them. They've gotten local artists in to paint them. They've gotten content in, consultation with the community, and I mean, that consultation needs to be happening. But most of the time when we see these murals, the reason why I get so upset is because a lot of what's being represented has no relevance to us. It has no relevance to our history, no relevance to our identity. South Africa is not just black and white. You know, there's a lot happening in between. So I tell stories about those who can't tell stories through writing, but mural arts and artworks, and these artists who are behind these artworks are like as talented as anyone in a gallery as far as I'm concerned. You know, so this is like history being documented right in front of you. So yeah, I would say that what happened is that Baz art eventually moved out of Salt River, and of course they've got the backing of the city, so of course they needed to go somewhere else, and so they went to District 6, which is just crazy because their whole manifesto from the start was about uplifting like a society that's uplifting a community that looks like it's derelict, and also gentrification was really behind that. So we have to have that conversation about how gentrification and street art is used, and Woodstock is a very good example of how that happens. How artists are used as a tool for gentrification. This is like a really big thing happening, not only in Cape Town, in New York, in Brazil, all over the world. But basically, I think the victory here is that with the help of the article and the Salt River Heritage Society, they managed to tell Baz art, as you can see by the logo over here. I'm probably going to get a defamation lawsuit after this, but it's fine. But you know, like, you can see that something was done. And actually a few months ago, because this first article took so much out of me, took, as I said, 30 interviews, a lot of people who didn't want to speak on the record. A few months ago, I thought about writing about the small town at the tip of the continent that's basically having an art battle, like an art war. And how do we research that and write about that? But the going into the politics of it, and it was just so much. So I'm really happy to be able to say it now, and also inform some of you who might not know what's been happening. But this is really not to be ignored. It's really not happening anywhere else in the country. It should be documented. It should be appreciated. And yeah, so unfortunately, because as art and all these other organizations, what they have is infrastructure, what they have is money, and what we have is just community and probably like no money or no funding. So what ultimately ends up happening is, because for any street artist or graffiti artist to go and get a permit from the city, you've got to go through so much red tape. You've got to get vendor forms, you've got to fill in, like, you know, go through so many bureaucratic processes that most artists just go straight through the organization. So what that just means is that Baz Art will continue, and other organizations like it. In Johannesburg, you've got a similar thing happening. All over the country you do. But these things, these institutions of power will continue. The city is backing it. There will be spaces. Every time you see a mural, you have to question, how did this happen? Who painted it? Who is it for? And what is the community getting out of that? So anyways, the reason to celebrate in this moment, I didn't look at my notes at all, so I just kind of free-willed it. But I think this is just, yeah, rewriting heritage and history back into our public walls and spaces, and that's really something to celebrate. So.
Thank you so much, Atiyyah, for that. And now I'd like to welcome our last speaker, Sama Yoyo, and she's going to do a musical item for us. And then I also would like to bring you to attention, we have a vendor selling goodies over here. I know there are kusistas and donuts and bread rolls. There's also raisin bread and health bread. So please do come over and support them over here, please.
Hello everybody. My name is Yoyo. I'm going to sing 2 songs for you. The first, I think some of you will know. It's a cover. When I was invited to come here today and thought of how ignorant I was about this happening and about Shireen, I thought the one thing that makes us apathetic sometimes is basically proximity to a particular thing happening. And this song, not written by me, I normally sing my own, but today I thought it was apt. It's called Behind the Wall. Last night I heard the screaming, loud voices behind the wall. Another sleepless night for me, won't do no good to call the police. They always come late if they come at all. And when they arrive, they say they can't interfere with domestic affairs between a man and his wife. She walks out the door, the tears roll down in her eyes. Last night chilled my soul. Pray that I was dreaming when I saw the ambulance on the road, and the policeman said, I'm here to keep the peace. As the crowd dispersed, he said, I think we all could use some sleep. Thank you. Okay. This one's called Mama's Lullaby. I'm gonna need your help, Sid. Please sing this after me. Oh, hey, oh, hey, hey. Let's try it again. I'm gonna give you a beat. Oh, hey, oh, hey, hey. Oh, hey, oh, hey, hey. Let's go on the beat now. Oh, hey, oh, yeah. Not to the person next to you. If they're not, I want you to turn to the person next to you and say, neighbor, I need to hear you sing. Okay, say, come on with me, okay? It's good, it's okay. Even if you're a little bit off tune, it's okay, you're sounding good. Alright. Mama's Lullaby is basically about, it's an homage to all the people that have come before us in whatever struggle or thing that we pursue in life. It's to say, you know, as a lullaby as well, it has this dichotomous nature where my mama's lullaby is supposed to allow me to sleep, but it's the one thing that keeps me up at night. That I must do this thing. I must sing my own songs. I must speak out against whatever injustice that I see. I must actively do whatever is in my power to do in order to effect positive evolution. We grew up thinking of all the ways we can change the world. We grow up thinking of all the ways we can keep it the same, keep it the same, keep it the same. Sing do 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 bitty ba 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 day. Do 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 do. Abazali babena mapupoe ere tempo nindigo tigo esepeta jenga makobo ukoze sikile njego kunkani. My mama's lullaby, hey, kept me up at night. Oh, now my mama's lullaby kept me up at night. She said, we grew up thinking of all the ways we can change, we can change the world. We grow up thinking of all
amazing. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Those were our 4 phenomenal women that spoke to you today. And I would actually like to invite everybody over to the stand over there. There are still the vendors selling stuff over there. Please support them. And then I would like to ask our 4 speakers to please come over and take a picture with me, please. Please.
Ampas ko pinyo damo. Okay, videos. Wow. Design.
That's why I was so there. No, that's sort of the weekend.
From now you'll share all your joys, hardships for each other, together worshiping Allah, seeking His pleasure. We pray that He'll fill your life with happiness and
So wait, that's gonna be?
Ik denk dat hij nooit stopt.